Welcome to the show and happy spring, one of my favorite times of year. My birthday always comes right along with spring. Turned 42 this week, and for some it seems old, for some it seems young. It's all relative when it comes to age, but I'm feeling pretty good. So glad to be here this week and have a guest later on in the show. Pete Holloway, financial advisor with Hazlett Burton Watson here in Wheeling, will be talking with us about all the things that he does there and give you some tips maybe along the way. We'll see if we can get some tips out of him. But first, we'll start with our usual features. I'm going to start this week with the community champion, and that's John Nanny. And the reason I want to recognize Mr. Nanny as our community champion this week is that I had a conversation with him last week about Mountaineer Boys State, and he's been involved with that program for decades now. I remember back when I was in high school and got selected to go to Mountaineer Boys State, and Mr. Nanny was one of the people involved then, and he still is today. And he does so much to raise money so that kids from the local area can go to Mountaineer Boys State, reaches out to businesses and other people and says, hey, will you sponsor a kid? Will you do this? Will you do that? And he does it because he wants to see good for these kids. And it is a great program. It's actually kind of a strenuous week. They get you up pretty early in the morning for high school kids and your summertime. But you learn about government. You meet kids from around the state. I know I met some guys from that I played football against from John Marshall and Brook and Fairmont and other places, and still see those guys sometimes today and say hello to them and talk about Boys State or just talk about playing sports against one another. But it was a great opportunity to get to know some of the other folks around the state of West Virginia and to learn about government and how it works. So congratulations to Mr. Nanny for continuing to do the great work that he does. Does a fantastic job with that. So he's the community champion of the week here on the Jamie Bordas Show. Next, quote of the week, and this comes from one of my favorite actors, Robin Williams, and so many memorable roles. Dead Poets Society, perhaps my favorite role that he played. But I know my kids love Mrs. Doubtfire, and I enjoy that one as well. But this was the quote from Robin Williams that was very appropriate this week. Spring is nature's way of saying, let's party. And it's funny that comes from Robin Williams because although he had some tragic end to his life, he was so much fun to watch and listen to. Of course, the Mork and Mindy is how many first remember Robin Williams, but him saying that spring is nature's way of saying let's party, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, after the winter when you kind of got to be staying inside and you can't do a whole lot, now the weather starts to turn, the flowers come out, and you can get outside again, and it is kind of time to have some fun. So I hope that the springtime brings everyone lots of fun and you can get outside, enjoy some time with your families, enjoy some time with friends, and have some smiles on your faces. So great quote there from Robin Williams. Next, the legal tip this week, and this is kind of a simple one, but what should I wear to court? A lot of times people will tell me, hey, I've got to go into court for whatever reason. I'm going to be a witness. I'm a party to a lawsuit. I've got to go in for jury duty. What should I wear? Well, I guess the short answer is, like so many things in law, is it depends. But in a general sense, there's no requirement that you wear a suit and tie or anything like that. Most judges will certainly frown upon you coming in with a cut-off shorts or flip-flops or a T-shirt that's cut off, or any type of course, vulgar or obscene language or anything like that is not appropriate. Hats are not appropriate. But basically, the general rule of thumb is to have a nice, neat appearance. I would say probably shy away from jeans if you can. A nice pair of slacks and a shirt that's either a button-down shirt or a golf shirt with a couple of buttons, something along those lines is certainly fine. If you're going in for jury duty or if you're going in as a witness in a non-professional capacity, all of those things are fine. Now, if you're going in as a professional capacity, I think it's a good idea to look the way you would look when doing your job. If you're an expert in a certain field, say for example, if you're a physician, it's probably a good idea to maybe wear the white coat that you wear every day. If you're in some field where you wear a suit and tie every day, it's probably a good idea to wear the suit and tie when you go in to testify as an expert in your field. If you go in as a coach, it's probably a good idea to look like a coach. So, one of the general rules of thumb for clients that I have is I want them to not look too far beyond what they normally would. If they're not comfortable wearing a suit and tie because they don't do that every day, I don't want them to wear a suit and tie. I want them to wear something they'd be comfortable in, a button-down shirt and maybe a pair of slacks and a comfortable pair of shoes. I would shy away from any type of jewelry that's very noticeable. Maybe some just basic earrings are okay for women. A wristwatch is fine, but I wouldn't go with bracelets all over the place. dangling earrings, things of that nature, necklaces hanging down, all kinds of gold, that's probably a bad idea. So just some general tips there on maybe what to wear if you do have to go to court for some reason. Hopefully if you do, you're not in an orange jumpsuit. That's not what you want to be wearing to court. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll have Pete Holloway with me. We'll be talking about the financial world. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Don't forget to do your homework.
All right, Mom. Trick or treat.
Here you go. Happy Halloween.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years, DeNoon Lumber.
Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration has been restoring homes after disasters for nearly 4 decades. Through that experience, we present Panhandle Custom Homes, Kitchens, and Baths. We handle your entire project, from concept to completion, working with you every step of the way. From the budget-minded upgrade to a fully custom remodel, you can trust the Panhandle name. Panhandle Custom Homes, Kitchens, and Baths. Welcome home.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week my guest is longtime local financial advisor Pete Holloway. Pete, thanks for being with me here this week.
I appreciate being on the show. It's great.
Different role for you because you have your own show.
Right. Well, we used to be on Channel 14 together, and one time you had your show and I had mine. Once we did a solo or a dual show,
which was a lot of fun.
It really was.
That show on money is something that people have watched for a number of
I'll be going on my 8th and a half year now.
Yeah,
so.
And of course on WLU-TV 14, West Liberty, and something that I know people enjoy seeing the different financial aspects of things, and we've even done some political stuff with the election night coverage a couple times together
and
up
no
there.
fist fights.
That's right. Yeah, we're on different sides maybe of the political spectrum, but we enjoy it and get along well doing that.
That's what's so important.
So, a lot of people may not even know what a financial advisor is.
Before we start, I just wanted to comment real quickly on your previous comments. John Nanny is one of the treasures of this valley, from what he did at the high school to what he's done with the vets. That is terrific. And one other quick thing, you were talking about how to dress. I showed up for jury duty, and for once it went actually to jury, and I was in a coat and tie, and they said, "You're foreman because you're the only one who's dressed for it." So that's another thing to remember.
You're right about that. It's funny because a lot of times as lawyers, we'll look and see who we think will be the foreman. You don't know until they come out and read the verdict usually, but a lot of times we'll try to guess who we think it'll be, and oftentimes it is whoever's dressed dressed up the most ends up being the foreman.
So that could be a warning or a goal. So.
Yeah, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's the person who's dressed up the most wants nothing to do with being the foreman. So, but anyway, speaking of financial advisor, a lot of people wonder, like, what exactly does a financial advisor do? And then maybe we'll get into a little bit too, how you go about selecting one. But what is a financial advisor exactly?
Well, a financial advisor helps someone with their finances, and it involves an incredible amount of time finding out about the specific person. And the model that I use is, if you walk to a car lot, you want to get a car, and a salesman walks up to you and you say, "Well, I'm here to buy a car," and they say, "Well, there's one." You're not going to stay long. They should say, "Do you want an SUV? Do you want a sports car? What color? What features?" and so forth. So my job is to find out what is appropriate for that person. And what's appropriate for one person is going to be inappropriate for another. And again, an example, there have been days where it's infrequent, like maybe a couple times in my career, where in the morning I bought a stock for somebody, and in the afternoon it's entirely appropriate to sell that very same company for someone else because that's what was right for them. So if you visit a financial advisor, rather than saying, "Here's the hot product," which they really don't do anymore, I hope, they should be spending a lot of time finding out who you are. And these questions are for a lot of people, personal. How much do you make? What are your assets? When do you want to retire? And so forth. And the more we can find out about the person, the better it's going to be. And just as with you or a doctor or a priest or whatever, this is private stuff, so it's not going to go anywhere. In fact, I tell people in Wheeling, West Virginia, if I were to go sit at, we'll give a plug, TJ's at the bar and say, "Joe Smith came in today and had X number of dollars," I guarantee you his brother-in-law is sitting next to me, right? So that also keeps us on our toes. So a financial advisor should be finding out about who you are, about what's appropriate for you, and keeping in touch with you, because 5 years later, things will have changed. There may be a new baby, there might be a marriage, there might be a loss due to death. All sorts of things do impact people, and it impacts their financial lives. So the more active the financial advisor is working with you and finding out who you are, the better that person is.
You've been with Hazlett, Burton, Watson now for several decades. And, you know, when you've been somewhere that long, you see all walks of life, I'm sure, but a lot of people may think, well, you know, I can't go to them. That's for people that have way more money than I do, or that's not right for me. You know, what types of people can be considered to need a financial advisor? Because some folks may think, I don't need one, or that's not for me, and I think that's maybe a little bit of a misconception.
Well, first of all, this is Wheeling, West Virginia, okay, and there are some very wealthy people here, but it's not like Philadelphia where there are lots and lots of them. My bread and butter client is someone who you would not think they're not basically millionaires because there aren't that many around. Bill Gates does not live here. Jay Rockefeller does not live here. And so that means that I have lots of clients, and I'm highly computerized and usually pretty good with names and faces, and can remember each person as they're coming in and what they're about. But the person who, some people don't need the help. They can do it on their own or are comfortable doing it on their own. My job, my value proposition is that, first of all, I'm not LeBron James, okay? I'm not going to be able to be Warren Buffett. In fact, picking the best or the most likely thing every time that's going to work. In fact, one of the things I do with the client is look them right in the eye and say, there will be times I lose you money. It happens. My job is to keep the client on track and keep them going on a straight line towards their goal, whether it's retirement, college funding, condo at Myrtle Beach, whatever it is. And all too often, and the media drives this stuff, because the people that are making money on finance are the advertisers for the media, and so they want you to be doing all this stuff, and while you're doing this, if I'm going like this, I'm going to beat 99% of the people getting there, and my clients are going to beat them. So my real value proposition is ensuring that, first of all, we have a plan, what is the plan, and let's stick to it. So in 2006 to 2009, when things were so horrible, especially in 2009, when it looked like the system literally was going to break, I had to keep everyone on track. And because we're going to talk about this in a minute, most of my business is fee-based, which means I get a fee based on the value of the accounts. Well, if the market's going down, what I'm making is going down, but that's when I earned my money, because people were being tempted to sell here. Okay, get out, that's all they heard. And had they done it, it would have gone lower, and that's what they would have said, boy, that looks good. And then it would have gone back up, and they would have gone back here. So they just sold low and bought high. Okay. Now this is my philosophy. Some other financial advisors might be very actively trading the stocks. It depends. You're going to find that the client, the birds of a feather flock together. So that if you have a very aggressive client, they're going to stick to an aggressive financial advisor. The one is looking for the next .com type stuff that can really be a home run, or cannot, but they're willing to accept those risks. So again, what's right for the client often involves what's right for the broker too. We work together. But my job really is to keep people on track, and if you can keep people on track, the odds are that they're going to succeed. It doesn't mean they're going to, but I think we've shifted the odds in their favor.
We need to take a break. We come back, we'll continue talking about investment strategy, how you talk about what's best for someone's portfolio, maybe even look at what's going on in the economy now. Stay with us on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Well, I was the oldest of 9 children, so as a result of that, I grew up fighting battles for my brothers and sisters, and we grew up in some pretty tough neighborhoods. I saw juveniles and women being mistreated, and I thought that it would be a wonderful thing to be able to fight for people that were less fortunate and that couldn't fight for themselves. The thing that I enjoy still is helping people and fighting fights that other people sometimes weren't able to fight themselves.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice. Disasters happen. Pick the team that takes care of them all. Powered by offices in Wheeling, Morgantown, and Pittsburgh, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration is ready to handle any size emergency at a moment's notice. We have the right people, knowledge, and equipment to respond 24 hours a day.
I'm Bob Huggins. When disaster strikes your home or business, tell your insurance provider you prefer the restoration company the Mountaineers call, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, Pete Holloway, local financial advisor at Hazlett Burton Watson. And Pete, one of the things that people may wonder is, how do I go about finding a financial advisor and determining if that person is suitable?
Well, of course, referrals, we depend on referrals. Ask around, find out what your friends, and listen to your friends, what kind of person are they? Because if they're, again, the very aggressive person and you're more conservative, you might want to look in a different place. The easiest way to find out whether you should deal with somebody is to put the words broker check into Google. And it will take you to a site that's run by FINRA, which used to be the SEC. And you put in the name of the broker. You have to put in the full name. For instance, I'm known as Pete Holloway. My first name is Walker, so you'd have to look for Walker P. Holloway Jr. My son, Walker P. Holloway III, is a different person. But put in the full name of the broker, and it will take you to a link to what they've done. It gives you a history of where they've been in terms of their employment. So if they've been at 5 places in 6 years,
questionable.
But more importantly, there's a hyperlink that says disclosure events, and you want to click on that immediately because it will tell you if they've done anything wrong, whether it's not a speeding ticket or something like that, but a felony, a bankruptcy, something wrong in the industry, and right from there you can figure out if you want to deal with that individual. And I always tell people, they say, broker check, why should I try it? Put the name Bernard Madoff in.
Yeah.
That's good for about 20 minutes reading.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's run by an agency that doesn't care, but they will tell you the truth about that person. And again, you want to do a little background investigating before you talk to the person. And that's not around here. The brokers, this region, there are no real issues. If you went to Philadelphia, there'd be some bad apples.
One of the things that people think of when they think of brokers is the stock market. One of the first things that comes to mind, and some people think, I'm not getting involved in the stock market. I don't understand that. I might as well be playing the slot machine somewhere. When you get fears like that, how do you calm people's fears? When you want to get them invested in a proper vehicle for their investments, and maybe they got some fears about it.
They do have fears, and it's funny, again, one of the questions we have to ask people is, are you, in terms of your investing, conservative, moderate, or aggressive? Well, for one person, when I mention a stock, it's an example, it's not a recommendation. I'm going to have to say this because of you guys. It's not a recommendation by me, Hazlett Burton Watson, or anyone else. But let's say Proctor and Gamble. Okay, the company's probably going to stay in business. Okay, they sell Tide and those kinds of things. For some people, Proctor and Gamble is too aggressive. It's a stock. I only want CDs. For some people, are you kidding, Proctor and Gamble? No, I want something with that's going to have some real pizzazz. So that's part of the listening process we go through, is to find out what does conservative mean to you, or moderate mean to you, or aggressive mean to you? Because again, it's how people perceive things.
Sure. Speaking of the stock market and the economy at large, oftentimes who's in office can affect that. And we're 2 months in here now to the Trump presidency, and the stock market's done well for the most part. And
right now, both of us have trolls on both sides. They're ready to push some buttons and come after us. But the stock market has done well. Trump has made it very clear he wants to have what is called a pro-growth agenda. The U.S. economy, since at least 2008, or maybe a little before when the Great Recession hit, has been moved by the Federal Reserve injecting lots of money into the system. We cannot continue to depend on that. So if you can get something going where the economy is based on companies doing better, employing more people, which means they're paying more taxes, and if they're employed, they're going to spend more. It gets things going that way. We have to see this is the agenda that he's put into place, and his cabinet picks in a lot of cases seem to indicate that that's what he's after. The other thing, and I've been talking to people about this a lot recently, and I hope you all will listen to this. There are $3 trillion that are owned by U.S. companies that are deposited overseas as dollars. They cannot be moved back into the U.S. without paying a 35% corporate tax. $3 trillion can't come back into this country. So if the corporate tax gets lowered, these corporations, and they're Apple, General Motors, those kinds of companies, might consider moving that money back, or a portion of it. If they just move $1 trillion, that's a big number, $1 trillion back, and the corporate tax, and I'm just making up numbers here, this is nothing in reality, is 25%. First of all, $250 billion goes into the system for taxes, which will help with the deficit or spending or whatever. And second, another $750 billion, and again, these are just numbers I'm making up on the spot, will come into the U.S. to be building new plants, sent out as dividends to shareholders, whatever. That would, think of that an injection of cash, what that would be like. It's not from the Federal Reserve, but it's coming from companies. So if this in fact happens, I think that's what Wall Street is looking at and why the market has been doing so well recently. Now I'll say one other thing. Yesterday and today I've left I'm away from the office and I don't know where it is. If there's a pullback, it's part of the act. Okay, it's nothing to do with politics. Is if something goes up, there has to be a time where you'd adjust it. Okay, so if there's a correction, everyone should remain calm. Okay, it's like we didn't have much of a winter, but when you have a big winter, a bad winter, all the leaves that fell in the fall get ground up and turned into compost, so that in the springtime there's food for the green shoots to work on. That's what happens during a correction or a bear market. And Pete Holloway is not saying there's going to be a correction or a bear market this afternoon or July of next year, but it's part of the act. Sooner or later it will happen. Try not to listen to the media and get spooked. In fact, if you're getting spooked, switch to the Cartoon Network. The news is better and it's less stressful.
I get a lot of Disney Channel in my house.
There you go.
By stalking Disney, just because of that.
I did not say that. But.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you being on the show today, and I
That's
think it was informative for our viewers. And thanks for all you do in the community too. I know you're very involved in the community, and appreciate all you do.
Thank you, and we'll talk again.
We need to take a break. When I come back, we'll be talking sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Don't forget to do your homework.
All right, Mom. Trick or treat.
Here you go. Happy Halloween.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years, DeNoon Lumber.
We've obtained the record results in almost every field of law.
And other attorneys can't say we've had the largest verdict in this field. We can. We've done these things. We've tried these cases. We've gotten the big results. We've gotten the big verdicts. That sets us apart.
I think that says something to insurance companies. It says something to corporations that this is a firm to be reckoned with.
It's not the size of the verdict that's so important. It's the change that we hope to bring about.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports. Basketball season is wrapping up. The Mountaineers making a deep postseason run, but a lot of talk on the local basketball scene, especially in the Mountain East Conference. West Liberty University head men's basketball coach Jim Crutchfield, who was a guest on this show just 2 weeks ago, has left West Liberty University to accept the same position at Division II Nova down in Florida, in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. And a lot of people talked about this move and said, geez, Division II to Division II, the team had a losing record this year, and he leaves West Liberty, where they've made all these Elite Eight runs in the last several years here, and look at it and say maybe it doesn't make sense. But, you know, if you listen to what Coach Crutchfield's had to say about it since he made the decision, you know, he was really looking at a new challenge. And when he was on this show 2 weeks ago, and I asked him the question, Coach, the phone has to ring. You have to be getting calls from other places. You know, I guess it was a timely question. You know, he didn't rule it out. In fact, he said when people call, you have to listen. And he relayed the story about how he was in Lowe's last year after the end of a great season where they were something like 30-4 or either side of that. And somebody said, well, Coach, tough season, but you'll get them next year. And he said, when people start looking at that type of season as being a tough season, maybe it's time to move along. And I kind of got the sense from him when he was on the show 2 weeks ago that maybe he was looking at other opportunities. And obviously he was, and the right opportunity came along where he's looking at it as a challenge, something where he can go down there and build that program the way that he did with West Liberty and turned it into a national powerhouse. And boy, you look at the facilities down there and the weather and everything else that you know, Southern Florida has to offer, and 25,000 students at that school, and it can recruit the Florida talent. I think he will have that program booming in no time, and I think we'll do really, really good things down there. So Obviously West Liberty's loss, sad to see him go, but congratulations to him on getting this opportunity and being able to go down there and being able to kind of pick a job he wants to take, not one that he has to take. So now the question becomes who will be the next coach at West Liberty. Aaron Huffman on the staff there, former basketball coach at Bethany, who had a great deal of success at Bethany and an athletic director for a year at West Liberty last year, and now on the staff with Coach Crutchfield, and another assistant there at West Liberty could be in the mix as well. And so there are possibilities there. So it'll be interesting to watch and see how that process goes, and with the budget cuts that are occurring with the West Virginia legislature, and including cuts to state institutions like West Liberty, you wonder what type of effect that will also have on the process, on the overall funding of the program, et cetera. So, and you wonder if that maybe had any role in the decision of Coach Crutchfield. I don't think it probably did, but it could have an effect on somebody looking at the job in the future. So, other news though in the Mountain East Conference with basketball, it's been reported by a TV station in Youngstown, Ohio, that Wheeling Jesuit University head men's basketball coach Danny Sancombe has thrown his hat into the ring for the Youngstown State job. Of course, Coach Sancombe has had a great deal of success at Wheeling Jesuit in the last several years. Deep run this year, made it to the NCAA tournament, got to the final 16 teams in the country, just fell short of getting to that Elite Eight, but a lot of success there. And so, not surprising that his name is being mentioned for jobs around the country. And, Wheeling Jesuit would obviously like to keep him around because they've had success, but tough to do. When someone has success, they're going to get the calls from other programs, bigger schools, et cetera. So we'll keep an eye on that and see whether or not we've got two local schools perhaps looking for new coaches in the not too distant future here. Speaking of basketball and the season wrapping up, no teams locally won a state basketball championship this year. It just shows how tough it is to do it. Having been a football coach that was a part of 7 state championship teams, everything has to fall into place. You have to have skill, talent. You have to stay injury-free. The ball has to bounce your way. You have to get decent officiating. You don't need breaks from the officials, but you want to, not have them go against you. And, everything just kind of has to be right. And none of the local teams were able to get that title this year, get a ring, but a lot of success by the local teams. But it just shows how hard it is in sports to win a championship. And you need good coaching too. That's one of the things that does play right into that. And, I don't care how much talent you have, you can blow it if you don't do a good job coaching that talent. So it takes a lot there. That's all we have this week. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you again next week on The Jamie Bordas Show.